holding a space for everybody that's listening and everybody that's not listening to really tap into this holy day season and make this day one that really is filled with the connectedness of human life, the active presence of love, and true deep appreciation. I think that when we take Thanksgiving beyond the idea of just saying thanks into the deeper space where the fact that we have a human life and the appreciation of all that goes with it is just amazing. Dr. Tim introduced a song back a couple of years ago. I forget the gentleman's name, but the melody line of the song is that he was disappointed as a kid when he went to church and realizing that, miracles happened thousands of years ago but weren't happening anymore. And the basic line of his song, I think the title of the song was "Everything's a Miracle." That having given up the mind of the world, the man writing the song realized that everywhere he looked there was this presence and this miracle happening. So holding a space for that miracle to happen for you this Thanksgiving and to be carried on in every aspect of your life. And in the meantime, since I cannot answer the switchboard, and Jeannie has that tied up, she's got the switchboard open, but I'm going to just rock on here. And I was in the process of actually prepping on an experience I had this weekend to share with you around the Beatitudes from the Aramaic. And so I'm going to jump in on that. I'm going to do my best to convey the change, the shift in insight that my still point. Actually, I did a quantum still point session on myself this weekend. I didn't know whether I was ever going to be able to do it. I was actually working with and training someone to do it so they could do the quantum still point for me. And it turned out that, actually he was supposed to come up here in the first week in November, but a big storm happened in Florida. And so he was not able to keep that appointment. And I was just ready to do it. So wasn't sure I would be able to, but I was at least semi-successful. Actually, I feel like it was quite a successful quantum still point session, and made for some mega shifts in my world, mega shifts in the way I see things, mega shifts in my physiology. It was just Sunday, so 2 days ago, but I guess one of the main shifts or changes that I've gotten, and I actually talked to Michael Tate this morning and shared it with him to see. He was the first person I did the quantum still point with back almost a year ago, and I shared with him what at least one piece of my experience, and it's like, yeah, that's what happened to me too, kind of a response. But what I'm noticing physiologically is that I'm experiencing a state of serenity or a state of peace. They talk about the peace that passes all understanding. And if you go back to the first century Aramaic, where the Greeks translate the words of Yeshua as "my peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you," actually the word isn't peace. The word in Aramaic is serenity, and a serenity in physically that I've never experienced. It's just awesome. So I'm going to attempt, and I don't know how well this is going to go. I was in the process of writing about it as the show started, and I was planning to dive into it, so I'm just going to go for it. And
there are no hands up, so just the two hands that are up were with Dr. Tim, so go for it.
Okay, cool. And I'll just continue to see if I can share the shift in understanding that I had. And I'm not sure how successful I'll be at communicating this, but I'm going to give it my best shot and hope that it helps in your journey and it impacts you as much as it has in the last 2 days for me. So I'm going to found it or base it on the Beatitudes. One of the things that I asked Jeannie to do as I was doing this quantum still point session breathing and doing the energy work on myself that I wasn't sure I was going to physically be able to do. And I know there's another level of it because you can only do so much to yourself in terms of unlocking things. But I asked Jeannie to read the Beatitudes for me as I was doing this. And the opening, if you happen to have a copy of the Beatitudes poster, and if you don't have it, you can download it. You can go to our website, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. I've got it a little further down in the notes, but I don't want to shift out of this right now. We'll give you there's a link on our website where you can download the poster. And this is a poster, and I'm looking at the copyright date on it, and the original copyright was 1992. So back in 1992, what's that, 24, 32 years ago? Third of a century, that's crazy. I was working with Dan McDougall. You heard me speak of Dan, looking at his picture right now. Thank you, Dan, for your support and assistance. And we had done Laws of Living at Heartland several times, and I traveled to Albany, Georgia to work with him in the Judicial Service Agency in Albany, Georgia, where we taught Laws of Living in the prison system. And one of the things we often referred to was the Aramaic translation of the Beatitudes. And as a result of that, I sat down one day, and if you've purchased or if you've listened to me talk about the Enlightenment book, you know that one of the first assignments that I give to people, because it's been one of the most impactful of my life in all the work I've done, was to sit down with Matthew 5, the Beatitudes. And if you're not familiar with the Enlightenment book, that book has all the key words in Aramaic in the Beatitudes. It's in brackets in the context of the translation. And then in the back of the book is a synopsis of the first century definitions of those words, a la 25 of the world's top Aramicists searching to find the first century meanings of those words. But of course, one of the points that the Enlightenment book makes is that the only thing anyone can give to another about any given experience is what their experience is of that thing, whatever it is. You know, if somebody dropped me in a pool of warm water and I wasn't much of a swimmer, I might come out of the pool and say, oh, you know, Bill and Mary put me in the pool of water and it was warm and I floated for a minute and I got out and it was just a wonderful experience. Somebody else might say, yeah, and I went diving and I learned how to hold my breath underwater and I sat on the bottom and there's a whole experience there. You know, if I didn't do those things, if I don't have that experience, I can't talk about that experience. So Yeshua provides a set of instructions, and anyone who engages in those instructions can only tell you about the experience, the brain cells they have around that experience. They can't tell you what Yeshua's are. And so 32 years ago, I sat down and wrote out longhand from the dictionary, the first century dictionary, the meaning of the Beatitudes. And as I'm doing my quantum still point session, Jeannie was there supporting me, assisting in doing energy field work, and I asked her if she would read the Beatitudes poster to me. And the first words on the Beatitude poster, as I wrote them back in 1992, are these. To be whom? The first word in Aramaic of each Beatitude is historically interpreted as a bestowed blessing. Jesus' words spoke of an earned reward. And when she read that to me in the state I was in, the instructions that I got, the experience that I had was a whole explanation of the error in that particular mode of thinking. Not that it was an error that led one off course, it's an error that helped me to get to this piece of understanding. But what I was shown as she read that instead of a bestowed blessing is traditionally, the historic word tuvehun, which is the first word in each of the Beatitudes, classically is translated as blessed are they. Something from the outside is going to be bestowed on you. But this word tuvehun, as again, instead of a bestowed blessing, it's communicated in the Aramaic that it's an earned reward. But what I learned as Jean was reading that, what I was taught was that, and I had always thought of it as, we're going to go out and earn this from the Creator. But no, that was a totally incorrect understanding. New brain cells. So it's not an earned reward in our worldly sense of winning or being deserving of something. But it is something that you must do in order to maintain blessing as yours. So, and I thought of, as I was talking to Michael this morning, as I was explaining this to him, I thought of Benjamin Franklin as he came out of the Continental Congress and said, okay, folks, you have a republic if you can keep it. That's more in line with what Yeshua is saying in the Aramaic Beatitudes here. Not that you've got to go out and earn something in terms of becoming deserving, not our worldly brain cells for looking at that word, but what you must do in order to maintain something as yours. So the next line in the poster, he delivered simple and practical teachings in his native Aramaic tongue. In the 6th century, all known Aramaic Bibles were burned, and many of his ideas, and many foreign ideas based out of the non-being mind and unsupported by his actual words, were put into his mouth. As Yeshua's teachings passed from Aramaic to Greek to Latin to Old English, and finally to modern English, increasing numbers of distortions and mental distractions occurred as the mind of man interpreted and distorted his words. Now, and what I'm looking to do is to get a correction in the distortions I made, that I understood when I translated this poster, and that the translators who were working in the 1st century, you have somebody describe an experience to you. How do you accurately describe the fullness of that experience if you haven't had it? You can't. You've got to water it down to your experience. So what I'm doing is expanding the experience of it from what happened to me this weekend. So we've all heard the idea of lost in translation. So what happens as these words go from generation to generation to generation is anyone who has not achieved the experience. Remember, Yeshua said, the things I do, you can do in greater. You can have the same experience as I have. But if you haven't had it, can you talk about it? So anyone who hears about it and goes, wow, that's pretty cool, puts their own coloring on it. It's been called lost in translation. It's kind of like the game of telephone where you whisper something in somebody's ear and they whisper it in somebody's ear and somebody and somebody and somebody. So the statement starts out, the girl in the red dress ran out of the party, and you say that in someone's ear, goes through 20 people, and after it's gone through those 20 people, it becomes a girl was drinking at a party and saw a ghost, and as she ran out of the party, she fell in the bushes while trying to escape. Story changes according to the brain cells it's filtered through. And I'm realizing deeply that that's what has happened with these Aramaic Beatitudes. And so to convey a whole new sense of the experience of the Beatitudes, hopefully, so that they'll open the space for your deeper understanding and your ability to take the next step. every person has to do their own journey and do their own work. We're here only to guide, and as we guide, we also learn. So the only objective here is to provide guardrails and enhance your experience. Someone else probably didn't sit down and write the Aramaic Beatitudes back in 1992 and teach them over and over and over again, incorporate them in classes. I don't know if there's anybody else on the planet who's done that. And so here I am now, 32 years later, getting a whole new insight into what these words mean from Yeshua. So I'm going to go back to the poster. I'm just following the poster through and then adding the new insights. So the following explanation of the Beatitudes is based on the Aramaic and is as faithful as possible. Take that addendum, as possible, to the actual words of Yeshua. And you remember Yeshua said you've got to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. If you're not listening through the same brain cells as he's speaking, you cannot have the same experience. You will not have the same understanding. So he says, in order to really incorporate my work, you've got to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. You're going to have to use the tools to create for yourself the experience. We're here to support you as best we can, because we've decided that, I chose better than 50 years ago to make this a full-time project. Not many people are going to do that. And so we're simply here to support. So with the brain cells and the experience I had back in 1992, after sitting down and rewriting longhand twice from the Aramaic dictionary in the back of the Enlightenment book, and by the way, the Beatitude links are at whyagain.org/Khabouris, KHABOURIS -Beatitudes, BE-ATTITUDS. So whyagain.org/Khabouris, KHABOURIS -BEE-attitudes, ATTITUDES /. So you'll find the links to the poster and radio shows we've done on the Beatitudes back in, December of 21. Mark Haddis, who'd come to Heartland and had really done some work with the work and really took to the Beatitudes. He and I did a couple of shows, June 13th and 14th of 2022. The notes, Jeannie, I'm just noticing, say, December of 21 and June of 22, so I'm not sure how that relates. But anyway, the links are there at that place, so you can download the poster, and if you want to listen to those radio shows, they will, if you haven't listened to them, they'll help to round out what I'm going to share with you today. So then it goes on to say on the poster, it shows that Beatitudes are in truth instructions and methods for evaluating progress and supporting us in achieving an exciting, reachable goal. What I was shown, as Jeannie read this to me during my quantum still point, was that Beatitudes are a set of instructions that restore us when we're followed to our created essence, which is love. And what I was shown at this moment as Jeannie read them, was that I needed a correction on the idea that our culture feeds us of the word salvation. Our culture talks about salvation as though there's some kind of a creature out there that's against us, going to fight with us, try to distract us, try to destroy us, and take us away from the Creator. Total, complete, backward idea. If Yeshua sat in Churchianity churches where that idea was spoken today, he'd say, that's all Greek to me, because it's nothing to do with the idea of salvation. That's the non-being mind tricking us in a slippery way back into being stuck. So, again, what I was shown was when the breath of life was put into you, into me, into each one of us, we were given a human life. Remember the question we've asked so often, hold the newborn child. Hold the newborn, get yourself out of the way, get your bloated nothingness out of the way, and just tap into the experience of the newborn. It's a question we've asked of tens of thousands of people over the years, and everybody's answer is always some variation on the theme of love. So there's not a dude with the red suit, a tail, and a pitchfork out there to get us. Let's go to the story where Yeshua comes out of the Garden of Gethsemane and confronts Peter. What does he say to Peter? He addresses Peter directly and calls him Satan. Obviously, Satan is not a dude with a red suit, a tail, and a pitchfork if he called Peter Satan. I always thought that would be quite an insult for him to give to one of his disciples, but he goes on in that passage. Read it for yourself. It even comes through in the Greek very clearly. He says, get thee behind me, Satan, and then he defines what Satan is. He says, for you think in the mind of man rather than the plan of God. If we play that little telephone game where the girl in the red dress was at the party and saw a ghost. So somebody starts that story, and it goes to the mind in another person, and the mind of the next person adds, well, the original story didn't have a ghost in it, but now there's a ghost. And it goes to another set of brain cells, yeah. And the ghost chased her, and she fell in the bushes. And, the whole story is changed. There is nothing out there to be saved from. If you want to define the word salvation, and you realize, and there is accurate conversation in churchianity, that is a gift. It is a free gift. But it isn't a gift that you get at some point in your life, as you go down the road and you've fallen from grace. That isn't it. You were given a human life from the beginning. That is your salvation. That is, if you, and tie this back into the idea of Benjamin Franklin, here's your republic, if you can keep it. We could hear the Creator saying, here's your human life, baby, conceived child, I'm breathing into you your human life. This will keep you attuned and connected with me for all of eternity if you can keep it. But if you fall into identification with the false images in your carbon-based memory system, what the scriptures define as the mind of man, and that's exactly what Yeshua defined as Satan. For you think in the mind of man rather than the plan of God. If you respond to something out of hostility, fear, rage, guilt, grief, trauma, you've lost your human life to that. And that, my offering is physiologically unsettling. When you give that up, you will have physiological serenity. So you were given a free gift from the very beginning, and it's right. There's nothing you can do to earn it. It's yours, period. And the church turned this idea of, well, there's nothing you can do to gain your salvation, but you better obey me, and you better do this, and you better do that, and you better do that, and they got a whole list that has nothing to do with the work of Yeshua. So in the moment of our first breath, we were given what the world would call salvation. We were given a human life. It's got nothing to do with this whole worldly Satan's out to get you. It's only what's stored in your own mind from your own generations that will ever be out to get you. It is only the responses within you. And you've heard me speak this one many, many times, and I got a whole new piece of it in Sunday's Quantum Still Point session. By the age of 4, the average person in our culture is totally enculturated and brainwashed into being a member of the one world universal religion of blame, of guilt, of suffering. and of victimhood. If you yield your being to that, then your soul, in the context of the old-time religion, your soul has been lost. You don't live out of being any longer. You live out of a false image in your mind, a picture, a construct, a perceptual construct that's generated of self, that's made up of all the ideas and all the trash, all of the blame, all of the rage, all of the guilt of the generations and of the culture. The Beatitudes show us how to give up our membership card, World Universal Religion of Blame. That's what I started to understand in Sunday session. So we need this correction of the idea of salvation to get to the truth of what Yeshua was talking. So back to the Beatitudes poster. Here's Yeshua providing the how-to for living the greatest and second commandment. What is the greatest and second commandment? Well, the greatest commandment is, have not loved God and neighbor. The second commandment is not love neighbor as self. The greatest commandment is to have Rachma for the Creator. And Rachma, a condition of love that flows through and empowers every cell in your structure 24/7, 365. That your physiology is fueled by love. Now you are in alignment with, in harmony with, and honoring the first commandment. And it's not about any of this stuff of you're guilty, you're at fault, it isn't about any of that. It's about having that physiological health and serenity where you live, where you move, where you have your being, which is in relationship to or moving through the literal energy field of the Creator. And the second commandment, that you hold on to your salvation. You hold on to your human life. You function from the presence of love with any neighbor that you interact with. And neighbor means anybody that you think about, anything that you interact with. If you think about the peasant in the fields in Russia, they are your neighbor. The Beatitudes are how to hold on to. One of the challenges we're having right now in America is holding on to our Constitution. Notice. It's interesting how that ties together. Benjamin Franklin's word, here's your Constitution. You've got your Constitutional Republic if you can keep it. And you'll notice how that's being challenged today by those who say, we want to throw it out. It doesn't work. We want a monarchy. We want a theocracy. We want Christian nationalism, which is based purely in white supremacy. Here's your constitutional republic. Can you keep it? I'd offer that we are created to live in serenity, alive, and with health. And so I'm going to just repeat from the poster if you don't have it. Here, Yeshua provided the how-tos for living the greatest and second commandments, the keys to peace and life and health. His objective was so urgent that he used the word tuvehun repeatedly in his first public teaching. And the insight for me from Sunday was that I understood that this was this was some new thing that we were supposed to achieve. Rather than instructions on the work required or the steps required to, if we had lost the physical serenity and the presence of human life, rather than the instructions on how to recover our original being. That's what it is. It's a set of instructions for how to recover that and live out of that, and live out of that where you go home after work, where you go to work, where you go to the community center, where you go to the gym, where you go to the pool, where you go to your neighbors, where you go to your kids, where you go to your parents. Are there any of those places you go that you don't function out of love? Then take these Beatitudes and put them to work. Because in each of those situations, the only reason you are not functioning out of your original created state, or I'm not, I'm speaking to me as well as you, it's because of your own mental illness, my own mental illness. Anything in a mind that functions out of something other than love is our own mental illness. And he was saying, and like this is just like, to me, a 180-degree turnaround. He was saying, here's how to recover and live out of what you were designed to live out of. So earned in the sense of, yes, there's going to be work to do, but not that you have to earn the reward. It's the recovery of the state of being you were designed to live in. In a world where, here's a song out there, and the melody line of it is, I cannot live in this ocean, this world of grief and greed. One of the things that we're going to have to give up is listening through a set of brain cells grievance and being attacked. And recognize that if we've ever attacked anyone, anybody in our audience ever attacked anybody? I've got both my hands up, by the way. Guess who you were attacking first? Yourself. The only person being attacked in that situation was you. And the attack was that in order to buy into whatever defense, remember the line from the Course in Miracles, in my defenselessness, my power and safety lie? We do it to ourselves. And then once we've done it, we set up an energy that draws it into our world. I'm going to go back to the poster. The statement before each beatitude more accurately carries the lost meaning of Yeshua's word, tuvehun. Implanted in your mind neural structures which will guide you when they are active. If they're active, you who follow these instructions will come into conscious possession of and be able to use this latent guidance system designed to make available thoughts and actions that will increase your happiness and well-being. Now that statement has to be changed. Because in essence what he's saying is, what I got Sunday is, Creator gave you a human life, and that human life produces certain energetic patterns in your mind, certain neural structures. So it wasn't the neural structures that were implanted, as the poster offers. It was the human life that was the cause of the neural structures. And it's the reclamation of the human life, which would be a proper definition of, if we're going to use the word salvation, it's the reclamation of your human life, which will then create mind energy or thoughts that will guide you when that state of being is active. If they are inactive, you who follow these instructions will come into conscious possession of and be able to use this latent guidance system. Now, we need to rewrite that. you'll be able to reclaim your human life. If you follow each of the instructions in this poster, of what Yeshua called the Beatitudes, you'll is into conscious possession of, and use this guidance system. No, it's your human life that you'll have conscious possession of, that you'll consciously come from, and that will create the guidance system. That will give you the instructions for how to function. It will give you the mind energy. Remember the opening words in John. In the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. So when we reclaim our human lives, so once again, if this state of being is inactive, you who follow these instructions will reclaim your human life and its guidance system, which has been latent. And latent there, it's so precise from the Aramaic. Yes, this is a state you were given at the instant of the first breath that went into your structure, and it's been there all along. But if it's been covered over with the mind to self based in hostility and fear, then it's been latent or unconscious. It hasn't been available. And this is, in the translation work says, designed to make available thoughts and actions that will increase your happiness and well-being. If you reclaim your human life, that's what you'll have automatically, directly. Now, the game the world has played is, no, you're going to have to find somebody else out there who's better than you are. Somebody else out there that is not like your buying into your power person message that you're broken, there's something wrong with you. And so the world has sucked people dry by keeping them, well, we need an expert. We need somebody out there, somebody out there, somebody out there. So you want to do the work required to keep your human life active, your human mind, but your human life being active in your physiology. So the first beatitude. Now, traditionally it's translated as, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Go back to Yeshua, and he talks about being connected with this power that is within us, and he says, you can deny me, but don't deny that power. That is Ruka de Kudsha, that's been translated as the Holy Spirit. But it's nothing to do with a disembodied spirit being. But notice, he says what you need to be in essence, in other passages, you need to be rich in that spirit. But what is he trying to convince us with this great translation? The historic interpretation. Blessed are the poor in spirit. That word, that the Greeks translate misinterpreted, distorted, destroyed, is not poor, but it's home. You who have a home in your human beingness, which results in an expression of the active forces from the Creator, your human life. And then it doesn't say you'll be in some place off in space somewhere. It says here, now, living and being, you will live in the Aramaic words are Malkuta Dishmea. You will live in a heavenly estate. I'm realizing as I say this is what he was talking about. My serenity I give to you, my serenity I leave to you. It is physiological. The Acts Beatitude, traditionally, historically interpreted as, blessed are those mourning their wrongs, for they will be comforted. Anybody ever get really warm, hot cockles from sitting around mourning how bad things are and the terrible things you've done? No, apply forgiveness and dump them. You don't need one more instant or one more thought about them ever in all of eternity once you've forgiven them. But what do we got here? Well, let's keep people mourning. Let's keep people whining and the terrible things they've done and the guilt. Oh, yes. That's one of the features of the one world universal religion of blame, guilt, fault, suffering. And victimhood. What does this actually say? You who, in the 1992 translation I did, you who love truth and profess your errors in the errors of your society. Let's change it. You who honor truth and have no stories to hold on to, nothing in your dissociated mind, for you will be freed of mental stress. The last word in that beatitude is nitbeut. If you don't have a dissociated story, if you haven't lived in denial, if you've given up all of your denial and content, there's nothing in your mind with which to create undue stresses. So the second beatitude would be more appropriately understood with a deeper set of brain cells, is that you who honor truth, and there are no stories left to hold to. No blame stories, no trauma about what they did or about what you did or anybody else did. It just isn't there anymore because it's been forgiven. And if it isn't forgiven and that energy is there, that energy will literally set up a field that will draw somebody out to play it out with you. And when they come and play it out with you, if you enter into a conversation about them, you'll miss one more opportunity to free yourself of your stories and of that mental stress. Honor truth. If anything comes up in you, the first place to go, if anything less than love comes up in you, the first place to go is into a conversation about how you're going to correct your own mind and what's in your own physiology, whatever's happening in the world, because the world is nothing but an effect. The world is a collective effect of our own collective denial and dissociation. You remember the thought in the Course in Miracles, it says, in my defenselessness, my power and safety lie. If I need to defend, then I've set up the literal mind energy that will create the attack. Am I willing to quit so deeply to one world universal religion of blame, victimhood, of suffering, and of guilt, that I've freed my physiology of that and freed my addiction to that? What I'm realizing is that out of this quantum still point session is that the mind of man in us, carbon-based memory that holds on to everything from every generation, simply replicates. Each time it does is another opportunity to remove it, to forgive that in us. You who have Malhik, humility, translation from 1992, the mental quality of perceiving and cooperating with the good desires of others. And it says, you shall, Nartun, you shall gain the earth. The historical translation is, blessed are the meek, they shall inherit the earth. And what's that meek? Like, sit down, shut up, keep your mouth closed, and don't ask questions. Just accept whatever's shoved down your throat and live according to it. No, that's not it. That's not how you inherit the earth. This thing called humility. If you're looking through a mind filled with hostility and fear, you're looking through a mind filled with projections. And so the primitive, I'll call this my 1992 poster primitive understanding of this, is to have this mental quality, try to cultivate the mental quality of perceiving and cooperating with the good desires of others, but there's a whole other level in the practical, in the actual application of it, and that is that you look out into the world from being, and by looking out into the world from being, you strengthen being in the world, in others, in every other. So it's not just, as I saw it in 1992, and as the translators, as it came out of the translators who, I don't know what each of their level of translation or experience was with the work, but there were 25 of the world's top Aramaists back in the 70s that created the dictionary, the first century dictionary in the back of the Enlightenment book. By the way, if you don't have and you'd like to get a copy of the Enlightenment book, it's in our catalog, and normally, it's $25, and there's, I think, $7 or $8 shipping that's added automatically if you order it there. But during the study, and you can go back, we did a whole study of the Enlightenment book. We went through the whole thing. There's a special page on the website for that and on our YouTube channel. But if you want to get a copy of that book, the offer that we made to people was, if you just go to our donate page, if you go to whyagain.org and you go down to the bottom of the page, on any page you'll see a donate button. If you click that and donate $25, the cost of the book, we'll pay for the shipping. All you do is do that donation of $25 and put in your name, your address, and tell us you want the Enlightenment book, and we'll take care of the shipping. If you order it through the catalog, it automatically adds shipping. There's nothing we can do about it. But if you do it that way, it'll save you the $7 or $8, whatever it is, for shipping. So, translation, the dictionary in the back of the book, the specific direction that was given to 25 translators, and Dan McDougall, who you've heard me speak of before, who was my partner that we co-created Laws of Living, he directed the translation work, and he was an attorney, and so he used the rules of evidence that determines whether or not evidence gets into a courtroom in determining what got into that translation. But I hope it makes sense, and certainly it's like a monumental shift for me to go from kind of this, taking this particular one, you who love truth and profess your errors and the errors of your society. That's really nice. I mean, that's powerful. But when you recognize that you've claimed your human life, and out of that claiming, you experience the world from a space of being, and therefore you are by definition a being that is incapable of anything other than honoring truth. You're dissolving, by that honor of truth, you dissolve the stories. It's the forgiveness, the removal of the stories that people hold on to generation after generation after generation, and bring forward, able to truly hold anything in the bloodline that's been dissociated. You heard me speak about the original challenge I had with my father, and that he was pretty brutal. And I've shared in the past a particular beating that I remember when I was about probably 9 years of age. When, being a wise guy, my neighbor had a new concrete sidewalk poured, and I had an Indian rubber ball, and for some reason or other, I just thought it'd be a great idea to bounce this Indian rubber ball in this wet cement. Oh, it wasn't funny, because my neighbor watched me do it. Stayed out. My dad worked as a factory worker. He worked 4 to 12 shifts, so he got home about midnight. My neighbor ran out in the street and stopped him, and shared my bouncing the rubber ball on the sidewalk. And beating was pretty brutal. And I've pretty much gone back and resolved that, but in the Quantum Still Point Sunday, I went to a whole other level of physically experiencing the physical trauma of that, the muscle tension and the defense against that, and the distortion in my structure from that. And that was actually the moment at which I went to the whole, I was up to there, I was breathing, basically just doing still point. And it's like, okay, I'm going to see if I can take it to the next level by doing the quantum energy work. And that was where the big shift took place. So to really come to the world out of being, and by doing so, that line in the worksheet that says, when I choose love, it wakes up the love in everyone. That's a reflection of this, but it's not one that I comprehend on this level until Sunday. The next beatitude, you who, the historical translation. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, they shall be filled. You look at how people do this righteous thing. I have the righteous anger. There is no right use for anger. Anger is a disease from the word go. It's a disease in the body that holds it. It's a disease in the body that it's projected on. If that body it's projected on resonates with it. There is no right use of anger. So this particular beatitude, you who hunger for, and the word in Aramaic is kinuta, the mind structure underlying beatitude, judgment, and behavior, described as just and fair behavior between people. Now again, that was a powerful mental construct that served me for years, but it isn't what the man was pointing to. What he was saying is that when you get to this point, you will have no use for a fear or hostility-based mindset. Having removed that from your physiology, in order for you to live, you've got to die. If fear and hostility have been integrated into your non-being, your false self, then when that's resonated, you count on it. What he was saying here is, you've got no use for it anymore. You're experiencing life directly from being, the actual energy of what's going on in the world directly from being. You're not experiencing it from mental constructs. And the only thing that's important to you, so it takes this whole idea of, the mind structure underlying the attitude, judgment, behavior described as just and fair behavior between people. You have no use anymore for any form of hostility or fear, because having been forgiven and having reclaimed your human life, those things dissolve from you. And the only thing you're interested in is truth. The only thing you're interested in is the actual world of the Creator, as the Creator actually created it. And I'm hoping that this is perhaps arousing questions for folks. And I'm realizing with the time that we're not going to complete this today, so we'll continue tomorrow. And what I'll ask you to do, if you've got any notes, is just keep notes of your questions. And tomorrow we'll open the floor for questions. I hope that this will maybe lead to some discussion. As I said when I started, I don't know how clearly this is going to come across. As I say, I've spoken to it a little bit with Jeannie, and I spoke with Michael Tate this morning. And so I haven't really, taught my mind how to speak about it yet. I'm doing that as we speak. This is kind of like the live process. Questions, refinement, subtle points, please make a note of them and let's talk about it tomorrow, because it'll help me to learn how to fill out the explanation to make it functional. The main idea is to make this usable for each person that hears it. So the next beatitude, historically interpreted as blessed are the merciful, they shall obtain mercy. What I'm realizing as I do this is, when I did this poster translation originally back in 1992, and you've heard me say it before, the intellectual journey is important, not because of the intellect, but once the intellect asks its first question, it doesn't shut up and get out of the way until its last question is answered. So this was, in 1992, my answer to my intellect's questions, understanding this, but not experiencing it. Now, maybe there'll be other levels of experience of it to come for me and for you. I don't know. But I'll appreciate any questions that anyone has tomorrow as we flesh this out. So, blessed are the merciful, they shall obtain mercy. 1992 translation, you who have Rahma, pure love encompassing judgment and behavior. You will therefore receive Rahma. So this ties into that idea in the worksheet of, when I choose love, it wakes up the love in everyone. So if I'm living from the state of being, then the whole judgment system of my mind and the whole behavior dynamic, the automatic decision system in my mind, is going to flip out of the unresolved generational patterns of hostility or fear into being fueled by love. And so this gateway, this filter, Rahma, or the frontal lobes of the brain, is wide open, and the whole system is occupied. We incarnate into our own human physiology. And in alignment with how many times we said it, as you give, you receive. You get the original, they get the carbon copy. So if I do this, if I live from love, then what happens? I get to receive it. My physiology, my expression gets to step up and into a whole new level and a whole new layer of healing. Profoundly powerful, rather than the intellectual of pure love encompassing judgment and behavior. And we're down to the last minute or so. So I'm going to hold the last two Beatitudes that we'll talk about, the last few ideas, until tomorrow's show, and hopefully there'll be some questions. Hopefully this is open, will be enlivening and enlightening and awakening for all of us. In the meantime, I'll just invite you to take a breath with me. Breathe into your physiology deeply, gently, and tap into the serenity that's there as a result of you bringing forward into your full expression the presence of your human life, that you reclaim fully your created essence, which correctly reinterpreted would be you've claimed your salvation here and now. And can you keep it becomes the question. What work are you going to have to do? It's not the work to earn it. It's already yours. 100% first breath, that was it. Nothing else is needed. What are you going to have to do to maintain it? Joining in doing that, create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift.